everybody. Thank you for staying. I'm a rainforest ecologist, so so it's a real change of topic for everybody right now. And I have a very short talk. It's sort of summarising what we've been doing and looking at the recovery of rainforest in the Wet Tropics and what's been done with respect to the communities in developing tree planting and the governments in developing restoration programs. So that's sort of what I'm going to talk about today. So, and I think it's really interesting. So I work in disturbance and recovery in rainforests, and I'm always really fascinated by how much literature we get coming out of the temperate regions and how they like to dictate how we think the world works. And the one thing that we notice very much in rainforests, of course, is that we have this latitudinal gradient. As you move up from the temperate regions to the tropics, we sort of increase a 5 to 10-fold in species diversity, the density of species within our habitats. And so rare species become the norm. So if you're restoring the landscape, how do you identify what would those key species be if everything's rare? We also have in the tropics, of course, the highest growth rates and highest net primary productivity, which means what we're planting is recovering much, much faster than what we see in temperate regions, where tropical forests will recover much faster. As a result, our restoration goals are really different in tropical regions than temperate regions, because we're not trying to plant an end result habitat. We actually just need to facilitate the forest to recover, or facilitate the community to recover, because it's extremely dynamic. And as a result, we're really just interested in succession. So how do we do this from a terrestrial perspective? So this is the Wet Tropics region where we're here, and I don't know if I have an arrow. I'm working in the green, behind that green rainforest where you have all those fragments to the southwest of Cairns. And so what we notice when we look at where natural forest is recovering, we've got most of the natural forest recovery occurs in very small patches, okay? Not unlike Reefs. So we have about 2,500 small forest patches that are recovering in our Wet Tropics catchment. It covers 11,000 hectares in total, and about 86% of those patches are very small, but they only account for a very small area. So only about a fifth of the total area of forest is accounted for by very small area patches. So we find that, so the whole idea of island by geography theory, which I'm sure is applied in reefs, like the distance between reefs is really important for dispersal of species among reefs. Well, we find the same thing with tropical forests, of course. And so on the y-axis, I have distance from primary rainforest. Standing too far. And on the x-axis, I have distance from primary rainforest. On the y-axis, I have the amount of forest that's recovering. And what we see is that in very close proximity to primary rainforest, we've got 91% of all of our secondary rainforest is recovering less than half a kilometre from primary rainforest. So we don't just get this broad scale recovery everywhere, it's very, very proximate to the seed source. I've actually skipped through accidentally. It's just the colours. So 68% of all the forest occurs within half a kilometre. 85% of all the forest recovery is within 1 kilometre. And 91% is all within 1.5 kilometres. So it's a very accurate relationship, and we're finding 95% of all secondary forest recovery is occurring within 1.5 kilometres of primary rainforest. So, and it's not just the area of forest that we find is influenced by the distance to the source. It's actually the rate of recovery. And that forest that's really close to primary rainforest, if you abandon the fields at the same time, it's about 8 to 10 years faster in recovery. So the speed at which it recovers is much faster when it's close to the source, the primary rainforest source. The second thing we found is that the size of the source is really influential to the size of the area that you recover. So when it's in really close proximity, when you're within about 250 metres, we see no effect of how big a remnant of primary rainforest is to the forest that we're all covering around it. But once we get to 650 metres out, and over 250 metres, you need to be, if you're 4 hectares in size, you will produce twice as much secondary forest. Once you get to 650 metres out, you need to be 8 hectares or greater to have a significant effect on secondary forest. And then once you're beyond 1,500 metres, the size of the remnant has very little effect on the size of the secondary forest. So that size of source ends up being really important for recovery. Okay, so let's just talk about what's being done here in terms of people restoring rainforests in this region. It's globally one of the really world-leading regions. Surprisingly, for such a small community, we've been doing it for over 30 years. We have the highest plant diversity in our community restorations of anywhere in the world. And that's kind of strange because our tree diversity really is a quarter of what you get in Brazil. So even though we're not the most diverse forest in the world, we still have 4,000 plant species, but we're not very diverse compared to many other places in the world. We are planting at a very, very high level of restoration. Brazil has planted recently 14 million trees in the last 13 years, and they've averaged 400 tree species in that tree planting. Here in the Wet Tropics, just our local government nurseries, so this is our council nurseries, in the last 5 years have grown 420,000 plants, of which there's 544 species that they're planting now. So you can see that even with really small communities, if they're really passionate about what they're doing and they're getting that support, they're able to really produce a lot of diversity. So I suspect the total production in the region's only been about 2 million trees, so it's not enormous, but it's been really targeted. This Venn diagram is comparing these 4 major nurseries that we just requested how much plants they're producing. So of that 544 species, among 3 council nurseries and 1 on the tablelands, we have 61 species that are shared and the rest are unique. And I think that that's kind of remarkable from 544 species. So they're really focusing very much on local diversity, on what they're growing and what they're planting locally. So there's 61 species that are shared, and of those 61, half of that makes up that 420,000 that are being produced. So there's really a big chunk of a handful of species that are being planted everywhere. Okay. Now here's the rub, because of those species, they tend to have similar functional characteristics. They're always small. They're mostly all small seeded. They're easy to germinate. They're flowering every year, and they germinate in a really short period of time. So what tends to happen is your focus when you're in restoration, you focus on things that you can produce rather than things you may necessarily want in the ecosystem. So nursery production will focus on the delivery of the output rather than the functional role that that's going to have. And so that has really important implications because, well, at least from a terrestrial system, if you're planting lots of small seeded species, you're not really accounting for what vertebrates may, the vertebrate diversity that you may have in the ecosystem. So one of the issues, I guess, is that people consider very much the idea of what's going to be climate change. How can we account for climate change in our restorations? And I think that this is actually a really big challenge because temperate regions would be saying, well, you need to plant by provenance, or you need to mix up your provenances and try to get things that are different, have different adaptations to different types of climates as a way of projecting our way forward. But if you have a really high plant diversity and nothing is common, what species do you choose to select for provenance? Where do we go with that? Traditionally, we do this, we respect the idea of provenance where we collect from the area that we're going to plant, but actually provenance is really poorly demonstrated in rainforest plants. And it's a real temperate issue. That's actually, we've got very little evidence of provenance even functioning here. So we've been doing this thing based on these temperate attitudes for a very long time, and we haven't actually even demonstrated that it's important for tropical forests. So finally, just what would be our restoration priorities, because I think if we're going to move forward with restoring the reef, we have to make sure our catchment is intact, because it doesn't really make sense to be restoring reef if you're getting heavy sediment loads. And today we really have been focusing really on a couple of catchments based on initial funding to the region, but I think we have other catchments like the Barron Gorge, which does when it floods, runs through all those cane paddocks, that I think that Barron catchment we also need to focus on. So I think if we grow rainforest trees, it's a win-win situation. It's not only reducing sediment into the catchment, but let's face it, rainforests sequester more carbon. A growing rainforest sequesters more carbon than any other terrestrial ecosystem. So why wouldn't you want to grow a rainforest? So not only are we reducing sediment, we're actually taking the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So that would be our win-win. And then, of course, we need to be considering the proximity to primary rainforests with respect to how we go about that restoration, because we want to ensure that we do as little work possible when we're close to primary forest and as much diversity as possible when we move into more remote areas. And finally, we have a big, what you may not know, is that about 80% of all rainforest plants are vertebrate dispersed, and they tend to be large seeded species. And so if restoration plantings are really focusing on the small seeded things you can germinate, you're missing a very large component of the rainforest plant community. And these large seeded species do not arrive at sites by themselves, unfortunately, because we've lost most of the dispersers, so that needs to be part of any kind of activity towards conservation in the future. So thank you.